Oh, hi everyone, it's Tanya here from Find Your English Voice. And this week we're talking about why do you freeze when speaking English and the 5 most common fear patterns explained. So, after 15 years of teaching English and coaching business professionals, I've noticed something quite fascinating. People's freeze patterns aren't random, they tend to fall into predictable categories, and today I'm going to walk you through the 5 most common fear fingerprints that I see. You'll recognize yourself or somebody you know in at least one of them, I would imagine. Okay, so before we dive into the specific patterns, let me explain exactly why this matters. When you understand that your fear response follows a pattern, that changes things. You can stop thinking that you are just like bad at English or not a confident enough person, and instead you are focusing in on the fact that you've got a specific trigger pattern. These patterns can be mapped, understood, and most importantly, they can be retrained. And that shift from I'm not good enough at this to I have a trainable pattern is really key. It moves people from like feeling more shame towards strategy, from feeling stuck to something more trainable. So let's start to identify your patterns. Okay, so the first one is probably the most common one I see, I think. This is authority anxiety. And here's what it looks like. You can chat easily with colleagues at your level, in teams discussions with peers. You can contribute, you explain things, you're engaged, and your English just kind of flows naturally. But the moment someone senior walks into the room, there's an uncomfortable silence. Your manager maybe asks you a question in a meeting and your mind goes blank. You need to give an update to directors and your mouth goes dry and your voice goes quieter. Here's what's happening. Your nervous system has learned that speaking to authority figures is risky. Maybe you had a bad experience in the past when you were corrected or criticized by someone in power, especially in public. Maybe in your culture, speaking to seniors is done very differently. Whatever the origin, your brain now associates authority with threat. When it perceives threat, it shuts down your ability to access language. It's trying to protect you. The problem is it's protecting you from a threat that really doesn't exist. Your manager asking you a question isn't dangerous, but your brain hasn't learned that yet. And if this sounds like you, don't worry. This is absolutely trainable. The second one is spotlight dread. So imagine the scenario. You're great in small group discussions, maybe in breakout rooms or one to one conversations with one of your immediate team or a team of 3 or 5 people, maybe. You feel like you're having a conversation. Your English seems fine, but when you've got to present to, I don't know, 20 people, 30 people, your throat tightens up, your mouth goes dry, and that feeling of there being all eyes on you can cause panic. This pattern is about perceived scrutiny. So when it's like the almost like the fear of being judged. When you think it's just a few people, you feel like you're having a conversation. But when it's a large group, you feel like you're performing, and performance anxiety kicks in. You can become hyper aware of every word you're saying, every pause, every potential mistake. And that self consciousness actually makes you stumble over the language that you normally use much more easily. It's like trying to walk naturally when someone's recording. You suddenly forget how to walk when you see that somebody's actually recording what you're doing. The trigger here isn't about necessarily who is in the room, it can be about how many eyes are on you. And if that's your pattern, the training isn't about getting over the performance anxiety. It's about shifting how you frame large group speaking. And we're going to be talking about that next month also. Number 3, spontaneity panic. This one is sneaky because you might seem very confident in some situations, and Here's what it looks like, or here's what it can look like. You can deliver a presentation beautifully. You have prepared, you rehearsed, you know your slides inside out. People might even think, wow, their English is excellent. And you feel confident because you feel like you're in control. But then somebody asks you a question that you didn't prepare for, you didn't anticipate. Maybe you're put on the spot in a meeting, or someone asks for your opinion without any warning, and suddenly, beep, nothing. Your mind is completely blank. You can't access the words that you use all the time. Here's what's happening. You feel safe when you've got control, or the illusion of control, because you are prepared. So preparation is kind of like your safety mechanism. It helps you manage anxiety, but when that control is taken away, when you can't predict what's coming, your nervous system panics. Your brain doesn't trust your English without planning time. And ironically, that lack of trust creates the very problem that you fear. You hesitate or even freeze, which reinforces the belief that you need preparation. The training for this pattern involves building comfort with uncertainty, which I know sounds terrifying, but it really is absolutely doable. And we'll also be going more into that one next month as well. Number 4, first word block. This one is fascinating. And here is how it feels. The hardest part for the person isn't speaking, it is starting to speak. Once you get the first sentence out, you're fine. Your words flow. You can explain things, you can elaborate, build on ideas, but it's just getting out that first word. Sometimes it can feel impossible. Sitting in the meeting, wanting to contribute, you know what you want to say, but you just can't seem to start talking. And then the moment passes, or somebody else speaks, and you're left feeling frustrated with yourself. This often comes from overthinking when you're trying to craft the perfect opening. You're translating in your head from your first language to English and back, maybe. You're worried about how to start. You're thinking about maybe your accent and how it's going to be received. All of this happens in the seconds before you speak, and the longer that you wait, the harder it gets and the more anxious you become. I once had a client who described it perfectly. She said, it's like I'm standing at the edge of a pool. Once I jump in, I can swim fine, but standing on the edge of the pool, it feels like torture. So if you recognize yourself there, and the training focuses on reducing the gap between thought and speech, we practice imperfect starts, literally just opening your mouth and saying the first thing, even if it's not perfect, until your brain learns that starting doesn't have to be perfectly polished every time. And that, doing something in a more sort of off the cuff and relaxed way it won't kill you. Okay. The last one, number 5, cultural uncertainty. This one is different because it's not just about anxiety. It's about conflicting communication norms. So here's what this looks like. Maybe in your culture, interrupting someone could be considered very rude, but sometimes in very busy British or American business culture, occasionally if you wait for the perfect pause in the meeting, you might never speak. And the meeting will end and you will have said nothing. So occasionally feeling like you need to interject and add something, that can happen. Or maybe in your culture, you don't speak until you're absolutely certain that you're right. But here, people contribute half-formed ideas. They think out loud. They say, oh, I might be wrong, or if this is just an initial thought, and then maybe they propose something. They share an idea. This creates a double bind because you know the English, you could say it, but you're unsure of whether it's appropriate to speak now or speak in this way or with this level of certainty. And that uncertainty makes you hesitate or sometimes even freeze. You're not necessarily lacking in confidence in your English. You're navigating 2 different cultural codes simultaneously, and you're worried about getting it wrong, not necessarily linguistically, but culturally. If you recognize this as your pattern, the training isn't just language practice, it's cultural code switching practice. So learning when, with the when and the how of speaking in this cultural context, even if it feels uncomfortable or against your instincts. So some people recognize that they have a combination of the five that we've talked about. And this is something important because you might have recognized yourself in more than one of these patterns, and that is completely normal. You might have authority anxiety and spontaneity panic, or spotlight dread and first word block. The patterns often overlap and interact with each other. For example, you might be feeling speaking spontaneity. You might be fine speaking spontaneously. Sorry. You might be fine speaking spontaneously with peers, but freeze if you're asked an unexpected question by your manager. And that's spontaneity panic plus authority anxiety working together. The key is identifying which pattern is strongest for you or which shows up most often. That's your primary fear fingerprint. And that's the ones we train first. We go with the ones that are the biggest issue for you first. And as you build confidence in one area, the others often ease up a little bit too, because they are interconnected. And when you learn to handle unexpected questions, you might find it easier to speak to authority figures. When you get comfortable with larger groups, your first word block that you've always traditionally experienced might reduce. They often influence each other. Okay, so let's assume that you have now identified your pattern or your patterns. What do you do with this information? This month, the focus is just on awareness, paying attention to when your patterns show up, noticing it without judgment. When you're in a meeting and you feel that familiar hesitation or freeze feeling coming on, instead of panicking or beating yourself up, just notice, oh, there it is. There's my authority anxiety kicking in, or, oh, that's my spontaneity panic. Someone just asked me an unexpected question and my mind suddenly went blank. There's the pattern. You're becoming familiar with how it operates, maybe what triggers it, what it feels like in your body, and what you tend to do when it shows up. And that awareness itself is powerful. You can't retrain what you can't see, what you don't acknowledge. So this month is just about noticing it. Become an observer of your own patterns. And then next month we're going to start the retraining process, and I'll show you specific exercises for each pattern, small strategic steps to rewire these responses. But you can't retrain what you haven't identified. So this month is just about identification, identifying the patterns for you. What are they? Your triggers show learned associations. So this doesn't mean, these patterns don't mean that your English is weak. They show learned associations that you can now retrain. So one more crucial thing, these patterns, they really don't mean that you're not good at languages or that your English isn't good enough. They don't mean that you're not smart enough or you don't know enough about the particular topic. They show learned associations. Your nervous system has learned to respond this way based on past experiences, either cultural conditioning, maybe repeated patterns of avoidance. And here is the beautiful thing about this. What has been learned can be unlearned. Your brain is plastic. Your nervous system can be retrained. And these patterns are not permanent. They're just current. They're just the ones that you've got at the moment. You're not stuck with this fear fingerprint. You're just getting to know it so that you can change it. Okay. If you want to go deeper with this, there is a chapter on identifying your fear fingerprint in the Find Your English Voice workbook. It walks you through identifying your primary pattern or patterns, gives you specific reflection questions and practice situations for each of those. If you'd like more personalized help mapping out your patterns and creating a retraining plan, you can book a free discovery call with me. I'm going to leave links to these things in the description. And next week, I'm going to show you exactly what to do once you've identified your pattern, the step-by-step process for retraining it. Make sure you're subscribed so that you don't miss it. Thank you very much for watching. Take care. Here are some links that you can contact me on, and the Find Your English Voice website where you can find out some more things about what I've been talking about. So until then, take good care of yourself. I will see you next week. Bye for now.